Every so often I give a talk about why you guys shouldn't be studying with me. And today it feels like it wants to come out again. Today was a hard class for a million reasons, but I'm often reminded of like a little ant crawling around doing all of its work and suddenly realizing it's part of a bigger group, that it's not there for itself, it's there for the hive or the hill, whatever an ant sees itself as a part of this large collective. And it starts to tell all the other ants, you know, we're not alone, we're not a singular ant, we're part of something much bigger. And all the other ants go, oh my God, how do you know that? And this ant just starts talking about it, and suddenly everybody thinks he's the greatest ant around, and this ant doesn't know anything, except that it's part of something bigger. And so the idea that it's an ant, and it knows that is very important, but it has no clue how much bigger the universe is than it and the hill. And every so often I get hit by that it's just big. It's really big. And we are these very temporal creatures. You know, we have this lifespan. It feels like, you know, some like 80 years for some of us, 90 years maybe. But it's like, it's just like that. Come and go. Come and go. And it seems long enough for us to feel it has duration, it has meaning, it has value, it has importance. The realization that we're part of something bigger is very valuable to us, that we have what seems to be purpose, meaning in our lives, that we care about others, that we are somewhat important in a way to the greater scheme of things, keeps us going. But it's also insignificant on another level. It's a very quick passage. And you know, the idea all is vanity. You know, everybody's here for their advantage, everybody's here to get something out of it, everybody's here to crawl over everybody else to get to some kind of a top that doesn't last very long. And, you know, we're very strange creatures, really. We watched Rudy's video for the Samadhi the other night, and it's always so powerful for me. Because it's a video made 40-some years ago, but it always speaks to me like it was made 2 minutes ago. And it always instructs me in so many different ways. And it's hard to believe that something has so much immediacy no matter where you are on the spectrum. Whether you're a beginner or whether you're quote unquote advanced, it speaks to the very moment of your life. And what I kept getting from the talk that Rudy was giving was it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're the most enlightened person around. You're here and you are still governed by all of the dynamics and rules of physical manifestation. And how do you live with all of these constrictions, restrictions, temptations, hungers, desires, fears? How do you get through life? Which is really what he's teaching. How do you get through the next minute, hour, week or so of your life. And Rudy had a very long view, so he would tell us, you know, it's really a practice for your life, for your whole life. This is not just a practice for a few weeks or to get a diploma and move on. This is something that you do for your whole life. And it's very clear to me as I've gotten older how valuable it is to have a consistent practice, because life really does, it starts to demand more than anybody can imagine. And all of you who are starting to feel the inklings of getting older are getting a picture of what's to come. And as you get to be my age and you have all these friends around who are all talking about the experience of being older, you know, the old joke is, you know, it's not for the timid getting old. It's a big transformational period in life. You really go through more struggle, loss, existential angst, if you will, than at any other time in your life. And if you don't have some kind of grounding and preparation, it can be really devastating, I think, and is for many people. They literally lose their minds, and they have no sense of wholeness when the mind is gone. They have a sense really of, they're insane, basically. You enter a kind of insanity, which is the loss of ego mind and no sense of self replacing it. And that happens to a lot of people. And as I've gotten older, I've sort of watched that process in myself as it's going on, and in the last few months I've talked about this a little bit. I've talked about these things I call afflictions and problems that start to develop as you get older, physical problems. And so I've been going through a lot of stuff, which again I don't like to have to bore you with. But what's been interesting to me is how the various doctors and people who've been attending me have prescribed all of these new series of pills that you can take to alleviate the various symptoms that you have, many of which are called painful. And that once you take one of these pills, it's really amazing, those of you who are sensitive to medication, how it changes you. It changes the whole sense you have of yourself. And you've probably all watched television and you hear the wonderful new pills that they have, then they decide they give you all the side effects that go on for half an hour. Those are real. And if you're like me and you're relatively sensitive, you get all of them. So they all come at you, and so you sit there and you go, oh my God, I have no idea who this person is today. It's a whole new thing that's going on here. There's a whole new mindset. It's a whole new ballgame. It's like they just replace you for a while, or maybe permanently, depending upon you and your willingness to stay with these things. They replace you with these certain symptoms that make you dull, make you euphoric, make you depressed. They do all of these things, and they have nothing to do with you. It's not you specifically, it's all chemistry, which in a way is what we are. We're all chemistry. But the chemical changes are so amazing because you go, wow, this is how people live their lives. They live their lives in these states of delusion, unhappiness, chemical euphoria. It goes on and on and on and on. All of the complexities of these pills, and I'm talking nothing all that elaborate. You know, most of them are called pain pills, and I'm mostly afraid of them. And I'll try it once and see what happens, and then I go, oh no, I won't do this, and so I stop and I just deal with the pain. But I have to say, I don't like what it does, and I don't like what it's doing to the population at large. There are things going on out there. People are using all of these drugs, and there are many stronger than the ones that I'm using, and they are losing touch with who they are on every level. They have no core. They have no center space to go to observe these transformations. And so they just get diluted, and people get, I think, into states of, well, you can become suicidal, and I saw how that worked. I just saw it. I mean, I could see how that happens. You can get into a state of, making choices in life that are completely wrong for you, that you shouldn't be doing. You can say things to people the way one can do when one's in a state of discombobulation that will get you in trouble down the road. For me, the value has been that it's promoted a kind of, I think, a kind of honesty. I try to share with Blanche, and we have our therapists, and just to share the truth of what's happening. And for me, the journey into the disintegration of self on a much deeper level even than awakening. It's just, this is like, there's no continuity of self. Things just drop away in ways that you don't understand, and they leave you unbelievably isolated, unbelievably alone. But it's not an aloneness that is ego-based. It's a cosmic state. It's a true cosmic state, and it's a very valuable state to get to. And you get there through the spiritual process as much as you'll get there through this sort of chemical disorientation. But if you don't have some inner strength to be able to say, to watch this, to see what's going on, to go, this, I see what this is, and it has enormous value in terms of teaching you. But at the same time, if you don't have strength, you will succumb to something really awful. So, I tell you all of this, I'm not sure why I'm telling you all of this, but I'm telling you, I think, because, one, I want you to understand that I'm as human as all of you, which I think is a very important understanding in terms of the way some of you look at me like, oh, Bruce is, a teacher and he has all this capacity. I find that to be really alienating, because I'm just going through this ride like you are. And, I've had certain experiences and certain things that have happened that I can share with you, which I share every week. Some of them I think are very valuable. And I think my teachings that come from my teacher Rudy and the teachings that come from the awakening experience have been really, really powerful insights into what can happen to human beings, and have happened, in a sense, to me. But I find this particular ride of the last few months, this dealing with a lot of pain and dealing with a lot of sleeplessness, which is at the core, I think, of what I'm having, because I cannot find a position at night that I can stay in for any length of time that doesn't hurt. So you go through that, and what happens is it shifts you on so many levels, and then the things they throw at you to fix it shift you even more, and then you have to begin to go, what do I do about all this? Partly, there's a thing in me that just wants to accept the pain, but anybody who's had any kind of chronic pain knows, it's you can say I'm accepting it, but it's not easy, it's not comfortable. And once you've shifted positions 400 times at night, you're ready to reach for anything that will let you get a few minutes sleep. Anyway, I'm trying to take this to a better level than just a complaint. What I'm trying to say, I think, is we are creatures in endless transformative states. And some of those states are less conscious than others, and that the experiences that I've been having for the last period of months, I think have been unbearably beautiful and important. But I also see, without any background in my own meditative spiritual life, they would have been totally destructive. And I see how they're destructive for so many people in our world. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't know what to say to people, except be aware, if you can, that when you take a drug, you're not who you are. You're not you. You're a chemically altered entity. And that chemical alteration is not something that should be making important choices in the world. You really are someone who has given up temporarily your singularity to something that is now no longer available to a higher consciousness. It is if you have a higher consciousness, but if you don't have a higher consciousness, you're going to be lost in it. You get really lost in that particular world. And so what I'm finding for myself, and what I discovered, of course, in Rudy's talk the other day, was the incredible grounding nature of the yoga meditation that we do. The incredible sense of consistency that comes from sitting and having a practice and having a sense of yourself in the world, having a sense of how you deal with resistance, how you deal with your own chemical nature, really. And for me, this has been very humbling and very rewarding and extraordinary, really, in terms of practice. And I don't resent or regret what's going on. I see it all as part of what's being given. It's part of what's arising every day. And some of these moments are exquisite. I have to tell you, when when a moment of deep insight and truth reveals itself, it is greeted with so much joy and so much clarity it's hard to describe. When human empathy arises, and it rises for me every minute, it seems, every day, you feel a kind of profound connection to the sadness of human existence, and to the beauty of human existence, and to the occasional joys of human existence. You live a life that's so much more connected on some level. It's really extraordinary to be able to feel the chemistry of so many multitudes of people and know what it is to be human, what it means to live this life. It's hard. I found a teacher when I was in my 20s who gave me a practice, and that practice has proven to be one of the most remarkable groundings in truth and reality that I can imagine having found. And it has unfolded in ways that has given me even more clarity, even more awareness. But part of that awareness is that it's bigger than even I will ever understand. It's bigger than any of us will ever understand. It's a huge, huge process, and there are many, many forces that keep us from knowing that. So one of the things I think is important is get a practice. Get a practice, because as you get older, as you become more and more fragile in your own biological state, as you become more and more incapable of functioning in the world in ways that you used to, and all that's going to happen. All of that happens. As all of that goes on, you want something inside that is still present and whole. That's what it's about. You want to be there to watch it all. You want to be there to appreciate it all. You want to be a conscious entity at the center of your own dissolution. In the end, this is all a process called liberation. But it isn't a gentle process. That's all I can tell you. It's not gentle. It's tough. And everyone I know who is experiencing it will describe it in those terms. This is what life leads to for everybody. You lose things. You lose who you love. You lose what's important to you. You lose everything you worked for. I mean, this is none of this is new to you, but you're going to watch that happen. You're going to watch it happen. And you're going to watch it happen from a place that's either entering a state of profound grief and suffering and misery, or you're going to watch it from a place that goes, huh. There is a place in us, in every one of us, that is a conduit to totality, to ultimate awareness. But as the Bible says, it's a very small gate. The gate is very narrow. And you can't take anything through it. You have to be willing to let go of everything. And you have to be willing to go, yes, to the simplicity of being nothing. And when they say nothing, they mean nothing. You cannot take your mind, you cannot take your history, you cannot take your family, you cannot take your resume into this place. Nothing will go there except you. Watching everything go is what will take place, whether it takes place in the blink of an eye, or whether it takes place over the course of a natural life. Life is a process of accumulation, richness, fullness, and then deterioration and letting go. You have to see the whole picture. You have to. And when you're in your middle age and you're so involved in, I got to get this career going, and I got to make this happen, that's totally reasonable, completely real. It's what happens. You raise a family, you fall in love, you enjoy, you go out and eat great meals, you do all of this stuff. But in the end, it's not like that. In the end, you can't eat great meals easily. And in the end, I mean, my poor dad, I remember giving him chopped liver once on his last Thanksgiving, and his caretaker said, "No!" And she ran and just dug it out of his mouth. And I was like, oh my God, I thought I was doing him a favor, let him have chopped liver. He couldn't swallow it, didn't know what to do with it. I could tell he was enjoying having the taste in his mouth, but it was more of ultimately a punishment than a pleasure, because it just sat there. Look, I know this is all very gruesome on some level. and maybe. but I'm telling you, 3 hours sleep produces these kinds of insights. It's the underside and the dark side of the journey, and I know nobody wants to hear it. I just know it, and I don't want to hear it. But I'm putting it out there, and I'm putting it out there, I think, for one reason. Make this about freeing yourself and liberation instead of making it about punishment and existential loss. It's not that. It's not that. It's a journey, It's the journey of everything that comes into being. Look at a leaf on a tree. Look at all the leaves on the trees. They all blossom in these beautiful, tiny little buds, and then they come into these beautiful, colorful green, red forms, and you watch them, and they have this amazing sense of connection to the sun, and they have this beautiful light that comes and takes in energy, and it pulls all that energy into the tree and into the earth and into the root system, and it makes the tree bigger, and it's a wonderful thing. And then cold starts to come, and it goes through this crystallizing, crackling, dark loss of capacity to function, and it turns brown, and it gets really gets very dry, and it can't take any more energy, and you just watch it. It happens every year. You watch it every year, and then finally it just becomes this totally inert thing, and then it falls off the tree and turns into earth and helps grow more trees. Has a cycle. We're all part of that cycle. You're going to be part of that cycle, awake or unconscious, your choice. If you are awake and aware of the cycle, you will be committed to the truth of what it means to be human. Otherwise, you will be in denial and misery and unconscious and unaware to the very last second. So, I had a choice today to talk or not to talk. And I decided I would talk, and I'll decide tomorrow whether I'll put this talk online. For you guys who've been listening to it, boy, I know it sounds like a downer. I just know it does. And people don't want to hear it, and they think, oh yeah, here goes Bruce again. But I'm going to keep talking about my journey until it's over. That's what I'm going to do. And there will be moments that'll sound like this. I can't tell you what the next moments will sound like because I'm not there yet. But I do know it's as honest as I can tell you what the process is. And that process is going to be shared, so at some point hearing these words when you're hitting 70 may be meaningful to you if you're still hearing these words and if you still care about this process. It's a roar of amazing jets overhead. Really powerful. Just don't delude yourself. Don't delude yourself even about spiritual life. So many people want a spiritual life because they think they'll avoid everything I'm talking about. So many people want to have awakening and enlightenment so that they don't die. Well, of course, that which is your essential self, your true self, does not die. And your identity with that will be meaningful to you for the whole ride. But your biological self has a limited duration. It comes and goes. And be gracious with that. Be honest with it. Deal with it as best you can. Soothe yourself, love yourself. Let others embrace you. And share this journey. It's the best way. We're all on it together. Every one of us we're on the same ride. Every one of us. And if we're good to one another, it's extraordinary. If we're not good to one another, then it's pretty sad. And one of the most important parts of what we do here is not the teaching, it's the community. Community is really important. People who care about each other. People who love each other. People who are there for each other. I think that we need to keep that alive. And if people are coming here to get the ticket, to get the free ride out of here, sorry guys, ain't no free ride out. But there is they call it conquering death. The awakened people. And what they mean is that you go yes instead of no. You say yes to the inevitable rather than no to the inevitable. And that changes everything. Learning to say yes is what it's all about. I'll go to Christ again because he always speaks to this part of me. The part of Christ on the cross that feels forsaken, deeply human. The part of Christ who reaches out from his own suffering in the middle of awful suffering and forgives the people around him. So it's not about him, it's about caring about others. And then committing himself to the process. Into your hands I commit my soul. That's what this journey is. That's what the end of the journey is. I'm very focused on that at this moment in time because pain will do that to you. It's one of the important things about pain. And I have friends who are in the end of their lives, and friends who are approaching that. And, you know, it all ends up to how do you ride that out? How do you do it? And when Rudy said this is a practice for the rest of your life, that's why he meant that. I'm so grateful that I have this practice. Because without it, I watch what happens to people. You don't want to go on that ride. So, I can't take it any higher than that, guys. This is where it is. So, are there any questions, or is there any reason to even have a dialogue about this? Yeah.
I do want to say one thing, which is, it's so not spoken of in our culture. I mean, there's, I forget the writer's name, the denial of death is so much a part of our culture that I think it's important to talk about it as if it doesn't exist. I mean, particularly this culture, particularly now.
I believe that's true. I think it is denied in our culture. And you know, as a filmmaker who's done movies about it, I've often been attacked for why do you always write about death? And I always say, well, you can't know life until you know death. Life doesn't make sense until death is part of it. So that's been my answer for interviewers for 30 years. But in this class, I don't talk about it very often. And the various times that I've spoken about those kinds of the darker forces as they are perceived, it's threatened people a lot. They don't want to hear it, and I really understand that. But I know as I'm getting older, you know, I understand how this stuff begins to rise up in consciousness, and that you have to be able to have a conscious relationship to it. Otherwise, what's the purpose of all this? You know, if it's just to get a good job or whatever you're trying to think it is, or just to free yourself so you don't have to die, you know, which a lot of people think. You know, I mean, you know, the Buddha promises life everlasting, which is true, but it's not going to be for the mind body of you. It can't happen. It doesn't happen that way. The thing that survives is infinite and eternal, and you will touch what that is in this lifetime. And you may, in fact, ride out the death process with that awareness. But one way or another, we all discover our infinite nature. We all discover it. Here's the difference. The discovery of your infinite nature in your spiritual life while you're alive gives you an amazingly rich life. The discovery of it at the moment you're leaving is a terrible sense of having missed something essential and not having appreciated what you just went through. You don't want to know this at the last second of your life. Maybe you do, but I think you can know it before that. And it's an amazing thing to know who you are.
I'm not sure what the question is in this, Bruce, but first of all, thank you for your truthfulness. It's unthinkably and indescribably meaningful. I mean, it's always felt that way to me. And you know, it's interesting. You know, over the years, that idea of truthfulness and how you help us frame it and sort of connect back with it. It's always felt like it kind of at once this unfolding and flowering and healing all at the same time. But it's interesting. I've watched it. I've watched it in my own life. It's like what it's meant to me, how much it's meant to me, and now I'm just watching this gradualism of this idea that truthfulness is more terrifying. And partially, it's turning 49. It's about to turn 50, and the chronic back and hip pain and sleep apnea, not sleeping very well, and you know, being caught somewhere between dream deferred, dream realized, and having two beautiful little girls who are just beginning, and I'm just this remarkable, of course, love, but almost envy of like, hey, you get to start, you get to do all this for the first time. Everything's possible, and somehow I think it has the idea that everything may not be possible, just find it terrifying.
It's the preciousness of it. And yes, it's what you will come to feel is that your daughters are yourself. They are one with you. They are one with this true self that gets to have this possibility over and over and over, but it's of limited duration even for them. We all get it. We all get to play in the fields of the Lord, every one of us, but it's a limited time of play. We get to be here and enjoy it, and if you don't enjoy it while you're here, that's a shame, because it's short, and it's an amazing thing. It's so extraordinary that we've been given this, but I can tell you it's not going to last. So, have a good time. Enjoy the glass of water. Enjoy your daughters. Enjoy moment to moment, because it's still amazing. And what's extraordinary is, even in the most difficult of moments that I've been having in the last few months, when I get to touch the joy, it's beyond belief. It's beyond belief. It's so beautiful. None of us would leave the world, because we all want to have that joy. We all want it. What you start to get after a while is that joy is part of the infinite nature of existence. You will never, ever lose it. But the particularization of it, which comes from your work, that comes from your children, from your wife, on, that is so special, because it's manifested form. The manifested version of life is unbelievable miracle. It's a miracle. And we get to touch it. We get to touch it all the time. We're in it right now. And you're in it up until the last second. And up until the last second, you are going to love a breath. One breath will be like, oh my God. I had an experience yesterday. It was so powerful. I don't know how to describe it. But I was lying in bed and having not slept and going through all of this stuff. And I don't really fight it. I mean, I'm really not in a fighting mode. I'm just like, wow, this is really intense. You know, what do you do with this? But I just was lying there, and I started moving my tongue around my mouth. And I went, oh my God, I have so much control over my tongue. and I couldn't believe how wonderful it was, and how much I loved my tongue, and how much I loved my mouth and my teeth, you know. And I started to just go, well, I could spend months just exploring that, which actually little kids do.
Yeah.
You know, they do that because it's one of the few things they have vague control over. And I thought, I love this. I love this. And almost like, this is enough. And I woke up so happy. I woke up from no sleep, happy, because I could move my tongue. And I'm trying to, it's what it comes down to. It comes down to the simplest stuff. And my dad was happy when that chopped liver got in his mouth, and he was not happy when he couldn't swallow it. But he had a moment of real happiness. We live for that. We live for it. That's all I think I'm teaching. Live for it. Live for what's happening. Don't miss it. Don't go around saying, "Oh, it's horrible." I mean, I don't like the pain I'm experiencing, but it's made me so sensitive to other people's pain and to the beauty of life and what goes on. I was watching a documentary on television last night with Blanche, and I was near tears the whole time because the suffering was so potent. I've never felt life like that. I've never lived life as fully as that. You know, it's just more and more and more for me. I'm just becoming like an old lady in a way, but I just love everything about life. I see a little bit of happiness on the street when I'm walking down the street, and my heart just blossoms with, oh my God, how beautiful that is. It's full. It's really full, and the pain is kind of a doorway to that. It's a possible sort of reminder that even in the leaving of all of this, you have been here. You are here. You're still here. Touch it. Lick it. You know, eat what you can. I mean, I started going to I've been going to so many people, acupuncturists, all these things, but I started going to what's it called? My eating doctor, nutritionist. Thank you. I was going to try to lose weight, actually. That was the original reason, because without sleeping, just so you know, your blood pressure and your blood sugars go up. And when your blood sugars and blood pressure go up, the doctors give you all this medication to bring them back down. So suddenly you're onto all those medications, adding, I mean, there's so much stuff that happens. So I went to see this guy, and he's the most wonderful guy I've ever met. I'm one of the most. And he just talks about, just try to understand why you eat what you eat. Just watch yourself. Watch yourself when you choose food. Are you full? Are you eating to be full, or are you eating to be satisfied? What are you eating for? It's just, it provides you with this very simple, conscious way of watching what you eat. He wasn't going to give me a diet. He said, I'm not going to weigh you. You know what you weigh. Just look at how you eat. Observe your process. It's an extraordinary thing to observe your process of eating and why you make a choice to eat more or not to eat more. What's going on? What's the psychology behind it? It's not like I didn't know this before, but a guy just gave me permission to do this. And I've been enjoying food so much, and I've been enjoying eating less of it. And not that I just go, oh, I'm full. I'm full. Done. You don't have to finish it all. Or I want more. It's just, I've been given permission to enjoy my eating. I don't have to look at food as an enemy, as something to be avoided, as something to be conflicted about. The minute you're not at war with yourself or the various things of your life, you develop a whole new relationship to them. A relationship of love and ease. And then you find out how to appreciate what's in front of you rather than to worry and fret about how you should be dealing with it. Excuse me. Anyway, guys, this is a process. It goes on. We're all in it. We're all here to either help each other or not. Share our stories with each other. Be kind to each other or not. You got a choice. You got choices to make. This work will at least kind of bring you into focus with that, and hopefully make you a fuller, happier, more realized human being. I think I'm going to stop. Oh, oops, wait.
It isn't that. It's just wanted to share some information. I was reading today's Sunday LA Times, and in the front page of the business section, there's a lead article about meditation and the use of meditation in the business place, the business world, and how it has become more accepted. And a lot of that article really echoes many of the things that you say in class, but it puts it in the context of a business world, which is really quite interesting.
I mean, a woman I know who I think is really wonderful has started teaching meditation in the New York school system. And it's an experimental program, but it's having an enormous effect in the classroom. And the more this is documented, the more I think this thing will start to spread. It's just, all it is a corrective, meaning you go from busyness to stillness. And if you go to stillness long enough, the creative juice of your being has a chance to get through and inform what you're doing. That's all it's about.
Right.
It makes you a better student, a better businessman, a better husband, wife, whatever. It just allows for a fuller, more invested life. And our culture has almost no stillness in it at all. We are the least still culture ever on the planet. And so reintroducing stillness and a connection to self is really at the core. And once you find that, and once you establish a real hold on that, if that's the right word, or a real conduit to it, it will fill your life. It will fill your life. Now I am done.